The next step is to iron the binding over and then back so that when you go to sew it down, it's already pressed in place and you don't have to fight with it. So what I do is I first iron it back with the quilt top up with a really hot steamy iron. Cotton has a property that if you get it hot and wet and steamy, it'll go anywhere you put it. And then if you just let it cool, leave it alone and let it cool, it'll stay where you put it. So now I was able to get a nice crease that way. And I'll just go down the side. And I'll go all the way around the quilt. And then I do the other side. And I just flip over and fold the corner just like you do when you're doing a regular binding. And I fold it over. Keep your fingers away from the steam.
Or we have little rubber things that you can buy for your fingers.
Oh, that's a good idea. Little rubber things to put on your fingers. Or you can clip it down. That's a lot of work. So my cotton blossom in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, Kathy, she puts a fusible thread in the lower looper when she serges hers on. And so when she folds this over and steams it, that fusible thread will hold it into place and makes things a whole lot easier. But I don't happen to have any fusible thread with me. So I'm gonna have to hold it. A good hot iron. And basically you're just ironing it over so it'll stay there, so when you sew it, it's a lot easier to sew. And then when you get to the end, you make a 45-degree angle. I just sewed off and made an angle. So a 45-degree angle, and then you sew the next part over and it'll make your nice mitered corner. You can futz a little bit with it and get your nice mitered corner on the back. And you just keep ironing all the way around. So when I get this done, I'll show you how to sew it down in a cool, easy way. So now I'm getting ready to sew down the flange. So I've ironed it all the way around in place. And it just stayed where I put it because I used plenty of steam and let it cool. But if you want to put something in between to hold it, but it's staying where I need it to stay. So I happen to have a baby lock at home, and baby lock has a dual feed foot that has a little wheel that pulls the fabric through evenly. If you have a walking foot, any walking foot will do, or even if you don't, just a regular foot, you'll just have to like help the fabric through. I also have a stitch in the ditch foot on it, which has a little guide that'll go right down into the ditch here. So what I'm doing is I'm placing the edge of the fabric, the corner, right, and I'm putting the little guide right in this ditch where I'm going to stitch, and the flange is covering the back because it's plenty of big enough. So how did I decide how big to make my binding? It depends on how much thick your batting is. So, you know, most people use 2.5 inch. That's where jelly rolls came from binding. They were making jelly rolls for 2.5 inch for binding. So what I do is after I get my quilt done, I take a little piece of binding, 2.5 inch, and I pin it onto my quilt and I fold it over and I see how big the flange is going to be. And if it's going to be too big, then I make a 2.25 inch binding. And so this, because I have a really thin batting, is a 2.25 inch binding. So here I am on the corner, and I'm all threaded and ready to go. I have the guide in this little valley right here, and here I go. I just hold the guide in the valley. This dual feed foot really works. And you can see I'm hitting the back of the flange. So I get a little bit of a lip here. It'll give them something to do when they're laying in bed and they're nervous because somebody didn't come home. And here I go. All I do is sew it down and hold it under, and you don't even have to stop. You can just keep going. It sure does help if you have a big table. When you get in the corner, you just stop, lift your presser foot, needle down, lift your presser foot, and turn 90 degrees. Put your presser foot back down and sew away. And I'm done. Just that fast. I have bound this quilt from start to finish. Didn't have to trim it.
Isn't that unbelievable?
And here you go. It's bound, it's done. I can give it away and somebody's gonna love me because I made him a quilt. So till next time, see you soon. I'm the Sewing Salesman.